Okay, next let's take a look at Part C, which asks, to the left of my mouse here, what happens to the firm's earnings per share after the recapitalization? Okay, well, in the interest of saving some time, I've gone ahead and worked this ahead of time. So first we'll calculate the earning per share before. So we start off with EBIT, right? Earnings before interest and taxes of $500,000. And then we would back off the taxes. And if I hit the F2, you'll see we take the $500,000 of EBIT and multiply it times the 40% tax rate. Now, there's other ways to do this, but I'll sort of do this in a long way so you can see how I calculate it using Excel as a canvas. So now, earning after taxes but before interest would be equal to $300,000, and then we just drop in the number of shares, which was 200,000 originally given in the problem, and when we divide the earnings after taxes before interest, we come up with cells E56 divided by E57, and we come up with $1.57 of earnings per share. All right, now after the recapitalization, we've got some changes. We again had earnings before interest and taxes of $500,000, but now we have some debt. And the debt cost, we would take the value of the debt, which we earlier calculated as $1,004,464, and we multiply that times the 7%. Right, so that's the interest rate on the debt before taxes. Okay, then that gives us what I'm calling EBT, earnings before taxes. Now we can subtract off the taxes, and we would calculate taxes by taking 40% times EBT. Next we drop in, next we would subtract the taxes from EBT and come up with earnings after taxes but before interest. Okay, so then the next thing we need to do is drop in the number of shares. I'm sorry, this label is wrong. This is going to be earnings, net income, or you can call it net income or after-tax income, if I can type it right. Income after taxes, something like that, after-tax income. Either way, it's the same concept. And we divide by the number of shares, and we see that earnings per share then went from $1.50 to $1.84. And that's how we tackle Part C. Okay, now I've slid back up so we can answer Part D, the last one, which says the $500,000 EBIT given previously is actually the expected value from the following probability distribution. So we've got a 10% probability that EBIT will actually be a loss of $100,000, and then we go all the way up to a 10% probability that EBIT could be as high as $1,000,001. And then we need to determine the times interest earned ratio for each probability and determine what the probability of not covering the interest payable at 30% at the 30% debt level. Okay, let me slide down and I'll show you that I've worked the first one ahead. So here's where we're working Part D in this section. Now I've dropped in the formula for EBIT, so you have that. Why don't we just put it right there? Times interest, or the formula for times interest earned. It's EBIT divided by interest. So if we have the earnings before interest and taxes given, then we can put in this formula here, which is take the current earnings before interest and taxes value, take the current EBIT value, and divide it by the interest cost that we've calculated. Okay, 7316. And you'll see that I put dollar signs around it. By the way, you can hit F4 to lock those in. You just keep hitting F4 to rotate. Acts as a toggle there. And then that way when we copy the cell, we can copy this all the way down and we'll come up with the proper times interest earnings. It will always reference, the correct cells. Okay, so that's the times interest earnings calculations that we needed to come up with. And one thing we can see is that the interest payment is not covered when the times interest earnings would be less than a value of 1. Okay, and the probability of this occurring is 10% given the probabilities that were put together for this problem. Okay, that takes care of this problem, everyone. Thank you.